Hello everyone, in this video we are going to break down everything you need to know about making your forms user friendly and secure using JavaScript form validation. We will talk about why validation is important, the difference between the client side and server side validation. Then we will explore some of the built-in HTML5 validation before creating our own custom JavaScript validation file, which will give us more control and present meaningful error messages to the user. This is the final version of the form validation we'll be creating by the end of this video. It has input for the first name, the last name, the username, email address, and then the password. You can validate for more input using the knowledge you will get from this video. I only included the basic input that you might use in your website for the sake of this video. For the first name and the last name, we will validate for alphabets, both uppercase and the lowercase alphabet. Then for the username should be between 8 to 20 characters. It can contain alphanumerics or alphanumeric separated with an underscore. Then for the email address, we just validate for a valid domain, email domain. Then in this password, the password is a little bit complicated, so I added extra stuffs on the password. So for the password, it must be at least 8 characters, and it must include uppercase letter, lowercase, a number, and a symbol. When I reload the page, this is how the form will look initially. But if you try to submit the empty form, you get the appropriate error message starting from the first name. So if you fill the first name, try to submit, you still get error from the last name, then submit again. That's how you get the appropriate error message for each of the input that you have not entered the correct value. So if I enter for the first name, if I enter, let me use John Doe, then the last name Doe, then the username, you can see the username should be 8 to 20 character, contain alphanumerics or alphanumeric separated with an underscore. So for the username, I will just enter John Doe. Then the email. Once you start typing on the input, you will get the appropriate error message prompting you on what the input should contain. So for the email, I'll just enter johndoe@gmail.com. Once you enter the correct value, the error message will disappear. Then for the password, johndoe23, then @ then for the confirm password also johndoe23. So with this, I've entered the correct information in all the inputs. Then if I try to submit, okay, the password do not match. So basically my password and the confirmed password are not matching. And as you can see, I've included this button where you can toggle and view your password. So this one is johndoe23 @ and then this one is johndoe23. Then I'm using the hash tag here, so I will change the hashtag to an @sign. So both passwords are now the same. So if I click on now submit, the registration successful, you can now proceed to login. So if you click on login, it will take us back to the registration form. So with this, we will always make sure that the correct information will be submitted to our server and finally to the database. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to create similar form validation like this one. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and let's get started validating. To make sure that this video is not too long, I already have some simple form design with some inputs. So we go straight to the validation. This is the HTML form. This is the form. We are submitting it now using the get method. I have the form control for this is for the first name and the last name with the error message. So this is where we display the error message for the first name and the last name. Then I also have a form control for the username with the appropriate error message. Another one for the email, and then finally for the password, and then the confirm password. So this is the form we'll be using for this tutorial. And then I have some CSS here for the styling. So this is how our form is looking on the browser. We have the input for the first name, last name, username, email address, and then the password. I can enter any random values here and submit it. So I can just enter any random value, click on submit. As you can see, our form is submitted. Because we are using the get method, you can see the values in the URL here. So the first name, last name, username, everything in the URL. Look at the password. So even though we didn't enter correct values in the input, we can be able to submit without form validation. That's one of the reasons why validation is important. Although form validation might seem as an extra work, but trust me, it's worth the time and the resources for several reasons. First one being data integrity. Imagine someone entering John Doe, just John Doe at Gmail as an email address and submitting it. Without the validation, this will just ends up in our database, making it useless or causing even some errors down the line. Another reason why form validation is important is for security reasons. So malicious users can just enter any harmful code in our input here. So they can eject some SQL in our input, or even perform some cross-site attacks through our form. So that's why validation is important, especially server-side validation. And validation also helps to reduce the server loading time. So if all our input is correctly validated here in the client side, once we send it to the server, the server will not need much time to process the informations again. So basically there are two types of validation. We have the client side and the server side validation. The client side validation is an example is the one we will be doing in this video. So the client side validation is done in the browser. We use JavaScript to make sure that the user enter the correct input values in our inputs. So it helps and also present meaningful error messages to the user. Then for the server-side validation is mainly our last resort for security in validation. So, and also ensure that only the appropriate data ends up in our database. So for this video, we start with some HTML5 validation. So let me go back to our code So we have some HTML5 validation that we can use for our form before creating our own separate JavaScript. So something like the required attribute. So for this input, for the first name, if I add the required here, so this will tell the browser not to submit our form if this field is empty. So meaning that this field is required. If I go back to my form, click on submit, let me refresh, sorry. If I refresh the page, click on submit, you can see the browser is now complaining that I should fill out this form. So this required attribute is also a part of the HTML5 validation. Then we have for the email, you have the type email. So this type is also a validation that tells the browser the type of input that this value requires. Then we have several other HTML5 validation, but we are not going to go down through all of them in this video. So let's just go ahead and create our own custom JavaScript file. For that, I will create a new file here. I will call it our main.js. This will be the JavaScript file we'll be using in this tutorial. First, we need to get our form and the inputs in this JavaScript. So I'll start with creating a variable. This will be our form element. So this form element document.query selector. I just get the form. So this form element, this is our form. So we are getting this form, and then we also need to get our input, the different input that we have. The first name, give it a class of first name, last name, the username, the email, then the password, and then the confirm password. So const first name, this will be form element dot query selector. I'm getting the input using the class name. I'll just duplicate this. This one will be last name. And then the username. And email. Then we have the password, pwd. This will be our password. And finally, the confirm password. With this, we have gotten our form and all the inputs on them. Now let me go back and include this our file in the HTML. So let me put this script file. This will be our main.js. So to check if our JavaScript is working, I'll just console.log hello. Let me refresh, and then okay, so as you can see, our JavaScript is working. For the validation in this tutorial, we'll be using some regular expressions. For the first name, the username, the email, and the password, we use regular expression to validate the input form. So I will create some regular expression variables that we use in this tutorial. The first one will be for the name. That's the first name and the username. So I will give it name regular expression. And regular expressions in JavaScript start with a /, and then it also ends with a /. So everything we'll be writing between these two / will be used to validate for the first name and the last name. So the first name and the last name will contain alphabet A to Z, both lowercase or uppercase A to Z. So this is what it will contain: lowercase A to Z or uppercase A to Z. Any of this is valid for the first name and the username. And then for the length, it must be from between 2 to 20 characters. So this is the expression we are using: lowercase A to Z or uppercase A to Z. Then this curly braces contains the minimum length is 2, then the maximum is 20, and then this $sign represents the end of the expression. So this is the beginning. This marks the beginning of the expression, and then the $sign marks the end of the expression. Then for the username, let's use smoke username regular expression. This also will start with a /, marking the beginning, then end with a $sign. So everything between this will be our regular expression for the username. So the username also contains A to Z, lowercase or uppercase A to Z. And then it can also contain A to Z, lowercase, uppercase, or uppercase A to Z, then some digits 0 to 9 and an underscore. So this is what our username will contain. This is the regular expression for the username. This part marks the beginning of the regular expression, and then this part marks the end of the regular expression. So it can contain lowercase A to Z and uppercase A to Z, or lowercase A to Z, uppercase A to Z, then digits 0 to 9, and also an underscore. For the length, finally, we use curly braces for the length. The length, it should be from 5. The minimum is 5, then the maximum is 20 characters. So this is the regular expression for the username. Then the email address. For the email regular expression, this also starts with a /, marking the beginning, and end with a dollar sign, then another forward slash. So the email, we will divide the email part into 3. So first we check for the first part. The first part will contain A to Z, small letter A to Z, or uppercase A to Z, then digit 0 to 9, then plus an @ sign followed by another A to Z, or uppercase A to Z, then plus a dot, then small letter A to Z, uppercase A to Z, and finally for the length should be so this final part, the minimum length should be 2. So for this email is looking a little bit complicated, but let me use johndoe@gmail.com. So this is an example of the regular expression we wrote here. So the first part here, this is the first part. This is this John Doe. That's it. It can be a lowercase a to z or uppercase a to z. Then it can also contain digits 0 to 9. That's the first part here. Then the second part, this is the concatenation plus sign, which starts with this @ sign. So the second part can also contain small letter a to z or uppercase a to z. That's this @gmail. Can be at anything. Just it will only contain lowercase and uppercase a to z. Then finally the third part is this dot. Can be .com, dot anything. Just it should be a to z, and then both uppercase and lowercase, and the length should not be less than 2. So that's what we are doing in this email part. So the email part is divided into 3. The first part is this, the email address. Then this is the email provider. This is the Gmail, and then this is the domain.com. So with these 3, we can be able to get a valid email address. Example is this johndoe@gmail.com. Then finally for the password, I use pwd regular expression. The password is also, I think the password will be the most complicated one, because we will be validating for both uppercase, lowercase, a character, and then a symbol. So we start with a / and also end with $sign followed by a /. So for the password, we start, it can contain I will just write the expression, then I will explain how it works. So this is how the regular expression for our password will look like. Let me just, maybe an example will be something like this. Maybe at John Doe 23. So this will be a valid password with the regular expression we have written. So as you can see, the password part is a little bit different from the three that we wrote before. So we start the regular expression with this. Then the first we are checking is for this part is checking for small letter. That's lowercase alphabet A to Z. And then this part here, we added this part because this, for the password, this part is compulsory. So the password must contain a lowercase. That's what this part is showing here. So this part is making this mandatory. You must have a lowercase character in it. For here, all of this wasn't mandatory. You can have only lowercases here. For the username, you can have only lowercase and it will work, or only uppercase and it will still work. But here you must have both lowercase. And then the second part, this part is making sure that there will be an uppercase A to Z. Then the third part is making sure that there will be digit. Then the fourth part is checking that there are special characters. So these are the characters that is checking. So these are the special character that must be on the password. Any of this is valid. So we are checking for 4 things here that are compulsory. So that's what these initial parts are indicating, that these are mandatory in the inputs. So the first is for lowercase, the second part is for uppercase, then the third part is for digits, and finally the fourth part is checking that there must be a special character. And then finally this last part is just making sure that the password will match this. So A to Z, lowercase or uppercase A to Z, followed by digit and then special character. So this is a combination of the 4 that we have written. So combination of these 4. So we are making sure that it matches this format. And then finally this is just the final part is for the length. So we only added the minimum, which is 8. So from 8 upwards can be any length, or you can limit it to maybe 20. Let's just add, the minimum is 2, then the maximum is 20. So I think with this I've been able to explain this. If you are still having any challenge with this, you can drop a comment in the comment section and let me know where I will help you. Then let's now proceed with the other part of the validation. Now that we have our expressions written, the first thing we'll be validating for is for the first name and the last name. So for this part, I will write out some functions for the validation. So let me write a validate. This function will validate name. So it will take a name, and then this is an arrow function. It will take a name and let the validated name will be equals to name regular expression dot test. It will test for the name dot string. So this part So this is our function. This function is for validating the name. Take the first name and the last name. Then I'm also creating a validated name. So this will return either true or false. Will be name regular expression.test. What this is doing is it is testing the name using this regular expression. So this is the name regular expression. It's testing our name that will be provided to this function. And we're also trimming the name to remove spaces. If there is any spaces in the name, it will trim it and then test it with this our regular expression. So if the name that we provided matches the regular expression that we wrote here, this variable will return true, else the variable will be false. And then we need to get the error. Let name error be equals to document.query selector. I'll have our name error. So the name error will be the div that where will be displayed the error message. This is our name error. So this is the name error. So the error message for both the first name and the last name will be displayed in this div. And we check if validated name. So if the validated name is true, that means that the name matches our regular expression. The name error dot inner text will be set to empty, and then this will return true. Let's just return true. As if the validation fails, if the validation for the name fails, then the name error dot inner text. So this will be our error message. Name should be between 2 to 20 character. And only contain A to Z or uppercase A to Z. And then it will return false. So this function will handle our validation for the first name and the last name. Then to test this, we will add this function on the key up event. So first name, this will be first name dot on key up. So whenever when we start typing, we can run the function to validate for the first name. So first name dot on key up, then we validate name and then pass in the first name dot value. So this is our function we created for the name, both the first name and the last name. So whenever we start typing, now we listen to the key up event on the first name, our first name input here. Then we call this function and pass name and pass the value of the first name as an argument. The same with the last name, so I'll just duplicate this. This will be last name dot on key up. So let me go back to my browser and refresh, check something. Okay, let me refresh, and if I submit, we are still getting submitted. So we are not handling the submit part for now. So you can see our function is running for the first name and the last name. Something is wrong, the last name is not. Check my code. Last name, okay, sorry, this should be the last name dot value. And if I refresh, the first name is working, then the last name is also working. So this tool is only checking for alphabets, so it can be lowercase or uppercase. So you can use both uppercase and it will still go. Then the next one is for the username. Let's validate for the username also. For the username, I will also write another function that we validate for the username. I'll just copy this function. Then instead of validate name, this will be validate username, and then it will take the username and then the validated name, validated username. Validated username will be username regular expression dot test. So this will test the username I don't need this string for the username. Then the username error, this will be username error. Username error document dot query selector username error. So this username error is also a div. So we are done with this. Is this div with a class of username error. So this is where we will display our error message. And if validated username then this will be username error. Username error. So if this validated username returns true, that means our username matches the regular expression that we wrote here. Then we can be able to return true, then set the username error message to an empty string. As if this returns false, then the username error dot inner text so this one we say username should be between this one should be between 8 to 20 character. And then this one will be can be alphanumerics or alphanumerics separated with an underscore. Then it will return false if it fails. So this is how our function, the function that we validate our username is looking. It will take a username, then compare it to our regular expression. If it matches, this variable will return true. If it does not match, this variable will return false. Then down here we are checking if this variable is true. That means our username matches the regular expression. We first set the error message to null, then return true. But if it fails, we will set the error message to this error, then return false. Then let's go ahead and add the event listener to the username input. So this will be username. This will also will be a key up event. When we run on key up, we run the function validate username. Then pass the username dot value. With this, we are done with the username part. If I refresh again, then start typing on the username, you get the appropriate error for the username. Something is wrong. Seems something is wrong with our regular expression for the username. So let me go back and check. So we start with A to Z. Then again A to Z, lowercase or uppercase. Then digits 0 to 9, then symbol. Let me see if this is what is causing the problem. I'll save this, reload. Okay, so our expression is working now. So the issue we are having is we added an extra space here, so everything must be together. I think that is what was causing the problem. So our username is also working. It must be at least 8 characters. It can contain letters. Then it can be John Doe, John Doe 23. This is acceptable. Or it can be John _ 2034. But once you add maybe any symbol here, you get an error. Or any special character, you get an error. So the valid input is alphabet, both either lowercase or uppercase or a combination. Then an underscore is also accepted, and then a digit. So the username part is also done. Next is for the email. Let's validate for the email. For the email, I also write a function for the email. I'll just copy the validate name, paste it. So this will be validate email, and this will take an email address. So the validated email will be email regular expression. Our email regular expression dot test. We test our email. Then this will be our email error. email error will be document.querySelector email error. Then if validated email, so if this returns true, if our email address matches the regular expression, set the email error to empty, then return true. But if it fails, then we set the email error dot inner text. So this one will just return a simple error message, invalid email. So it will not make any suggestion. You have to enter your valid email. If you have an email, just enter a valid email address. So this will just say invalid email address, and then it will return false. So this is our function. Then we also add an event, email, a key up event to the email input. So it will validate email, and this will be email.value. Pass the value of the email. Go back to the browser and refresh. Then once we start typing on the email, you get the error. If you type the valid email address, johndoe@gmail.com. So this is a valid email, and you can see the error message has disappeared. Then finally, let's validate the password. I'll just copy this on down. Then instead of validate email, this will be validate password. Then we will pass the password. Then this will be validated password. This will be password regular expression dot test. We test our password. Then the password error. Password error. Let me check what I used. So we are done with the username, email, and password. So here, okay, password error. So this is where we display the error message for the password. So this function is just similar to each other, just a little bit different. So for the password, the error message will say password must be at least 8 characters. Including uppercase, lowercase, a number, and a symbol. So this will be our error message for the password. Then finally it will return false. So for the validated password, we add the key up event to the password pwd on key up. We run this function, then validate password. Then we pass the pwd.value. The same thing goes with the confirm password. Confirm password will also be validated using the validate password. And if I refresh and then start typing, you can see we are getting the appropriate error. If I write a valid password, the error message will disappear, and we are not seeing it because we have not added the functionality to toggle the password yet. So with this, we have implemented the validation for all this input, but something is still remaining. Now the validation is working when we start typing, but if we click on submit, you can see our form is still getting submitted. So to prevent that, we need to work on the submission of the form. So let me go back to my code, and initially we have got this form element. So this is our form. So let's work on the form submission. So this will be our form element dot. I will use the onSubmit. So this will listen to submit event on the form. Once we try to submit the form, first we need to prevent the default behavior of the browser. So with this, our form is no longer getting submitted using the get method again. If I go back to my browser and refresh, click on submit, you can see the form is no longer getting submitted as user. So with this, we can work on the form inputs. So here we check if we use if statement to check if we enter the valid inputs. So we start with the first name. If validate name, so if this returns false, and then we pass the first name dot value again. So here we are checking on submit of this form. We are checking if this validate name, the validate name is the function that we wrote, and we are also passing the value of the first name to it. So if this returns false, that means the validation of the first name failed. What we do is just we write first name dot focus. So we focus the input. So if you click on submit and the first name, you enter the wrong value on the first name, or the first name is empty, it will focus the input, prompting you to enter the correct value. So let's go back and refresh. If I click on submit, you can see our first name got focused, and we are seeing the error message. prompting you to enter the first name. So with the help of the function we created, it made our work easier. And after the first name, we also check for else if validate name this will be our last name dot value. We are checking if it is false. So if the validate name, if this returns false, then we will focus the last name. This will be last name dot focus. After the last name, we check for the username. If the validate username fails, then this will take the username dot value. If this one also returns false, we focus the username. After the username, the next one is for the email address. This will be validate email dot value. Then it will focus the email input. Next is the password. Validate password. This will be password dot value. Then the password dot focus. So this will be for the confirm password. You also check for the confirm password. With this, we can be able to verify if all our input has the correct value when we click on the submit button. Now let me go back and refresh the page. Click on submit. We start with the first name. We enter the correct value for the first name and the last name. Click on submit, then the username, then click submit again. The email address, then finally for the password, you need to enter a valid password. Then for the confirm password, so all our inputs are correct now. Then if you hit submit, invalid email address johndoe@gmail.com. Something is wrong with the email. I think this is coming from a regular expression. Let's go back to the regular expression again. This is the email. Check for, start with A to Z, lowercase or uppercase, then digits 0 to 9. Then we check from the @ sign, we check for lowercase a to z or uppercase a to z, then dot lowercase a to z, then uppercase a to z. I'm not seeing any problem here. Email, let me check my function. Validate email. Sorry guys, I just discovered that I made a mistake. Instead of using validate password here, I'm using validate email for the confirm password. That was what was causing our error before. Sorry for that. So with this we are good to go. Let me just refresh, then John Doe and John. So with this, click on submit and we are getting submitted here. So our form is now working, even the submission is working. Then the last thing we need to check, we need to confirm this, make sure that the password matches the confirmed password. So this will be an else if statement again. And now we are checking if the password pwd, if it does not match the confirmed password, if it is not equal to the confirmed password. This is pwd.value. If the value doesn't match the confirmed password .value, then here we will get the document.query selector, our password error, you get the password error, then set the inner text. The inner text will be invalid password. No, password does not match. Then we will reset, we will focus the confirm password. And finally, if everything goes well, we will reset our form and then present the success message .inner HTML. So this will just contain a div. I return a div with a class of success. And it will say registration. Successful. Then another anchor tag. Let's say login now. So if we successfully submit the form, it will display this success message. So with this, we are done with everything with the validation. Let's go back and try it one more time. I'll enter the correct value for John Doe. Then for the password, if I click on submit, password does not match. So currently my password does not match. Then if I change to the correct password, click on submit, my form will be submitted successfully. Click on login now to take us back to the registration page. So with this, we are done with our validation, both for the key up event. When the user start typing, we display the appropriate error, or when you click on the submit, we display also the appropriate error for the input field that you have not filled. Then the next stuff we need to do is this toggle button here. You can toggle so that we can see our password in order to confirm it. So for that, let's go back to our form again, our code again. Let me minimize this. So for that, I will also create a function, and in my code here, I have this password div. So this, in my password form control, I have a password, two passwords here, both for the main password and the confirm password. So I will use these classes to work in my JavaScript. Let me go back to where I define my variable and add the password. So this const passwords equals to document dot query selector all. So I'm using this syntax so that I can get both the main password and the confirm password. Then with the passwords, you can go down here before the submission, create a function. This will be toggle password, and this will be an arrow function. Then I pass the password here, then get the input from the password. Let pwd input password dot query selector the input, and then the icons password dot query selector icons. So the icons is for the toggle icon. Then when we click on the icons dot onClick, add an onClick event on the icons. So when you click on the icon, it will just check if the password pwd input password input, if the type check if the type is password, if it is set to password, it will change it, the pwd input dot type, change it to text, and then for the icons it will add a class to the icon, class list, active, as just copy this and paste it here. It will set the type to password, then remove the active class. So what this function does is it will get the password. So these are the password. I have the two password, a div with the password. So this is for the main password and then for the confirm password, and this is the input and then the icons on them. So for the icons in my CSS, if you go to my CSS file, this is where I style the icons. So for the active class, I will just hide and display one of the icons. That's the work of this active. So we get the password, then get the input in the password, then get the icons. When you click on the icons, it will check if the password if the type of the password input is password. So this is the type. You can see the type here is password. So the type password is what is telling the browser to hide the password. So with an input with the type of password, the browser will always hide the value like this. So that's what we are checking here. We check if the input type is password. If it is password, it will change it to text, allowing us to see it in the browser, and then add the active class to the icons. The active class we are adding is just to hide and display. We have two icons, this one, the view and the hide. So when it is active, then this one will be hidden and then this one will show. When it is not active, this one will show, this one will be hidden. And then finally, if you click and the input type is not password. If it is already text, then it will change it back to password and then remove the active class. This is remove. So this is what the function does, and then this function will work for each of the passwords. So I'll just go the password dot for each password. So for each password, I will toggle the password and pass the password. So this get the two password in password divs. So this password and this, and then for each of them, I will just toggle the password and pass this. So let's go back and test our form now. So let me type something here. Click on this. As you can see, we are seeing it. Click again, it will go back. So this is it. But we want to add a timeout so that if we click, maybe after some seconds, it will toggle back. It will not wait for us to click before it turn back to password. So for that, I will set a timeout here. This will be set timeout. So for the timing, I will just add this is 0.5 seconds, and then it will do this. So this is it. We are setting a timeout. After 0.5 seconds, it will change it back to password, then remove the active. Go back and try it again. Add random text. Click here. You can see it. So after 0.5 seconds, this turns back to the password. So with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial, and I hope you have been able to learn more about form validation. What we did here is the client-side validation. We are validating on the browser. So the next validation we will do is the server-side validation, but that will be in another tutorial. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel so that others will see us on YouTube, and it will also encourage us to drop more videos like this. Thank you, and see you on my next video.